Well, hey, at Middlesbrough Baptist Church, just wanted to bring you guys our weekly devotional from the church here. If you guys notice, there's something missing, and it's all of the chairs in here. Uh, Later on this week for our Sunday service and for the next week, we'll be making a video about how to use this space and what church will look like. But for now, we'll have a bit of a devotional from our socially distanced church space. We had a prayer meeting earlier this week, and I was feeling like God was sort of leading me to do a bit of praying through Ecclesiastes 3. Those really popular verses that you might have heard at a funeral or you might have read them in a Bible study. They're very reflective, though. And I found that they were really meaningful for this strange time of COVID that we're in. And I'll read a few of them, and then we'll go to the last bit and kind of land there with our sort of thought for the week. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. And then the next verse, this is the last one I'll read, made me chuckle a little bit. It's a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, which seems very appropriate for social distancing, though I don't think that's what the preacher of Ecclesiastes had in mind. And it goes on with a few more of these sort of two-part bits of poetry. And it goes down and it says this: I have seen the business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. Ecclesiastes is a really beautiful book, and it has some really good wisdom. It can seem kind of dark and kind of fatalistic at times to people, where it talks about vanity, vanity, all is vanities, but it ends on this really beautiful portrait that talks about having joy and enjoying life and looking to God and remembering God in our youth. But it has some really profound wisdom as well. I love this. He has made everything beautiful in its time. I was thinking about that. This has been a really difficult time. If I'm honest, at times it feels more bitter than sweet, has COVID. There have been a lot of losses in terms of, people have died, obviously, but plans that we made, time to be with family. Most of us haven't seen our family near as much as we would like to have this year, and that's hard. We've got a young daughter, and both of her sets of grandparents haven't been able to see her this year because of all the different canceled flights and closed borders, and that's really difficult. And I know it seems a small and a daft thing when people are losing jobs and dying, but it's serious. And a lot of you guys will miss getting to hug your families. But there's something about this. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Made everything beautiful in its time. And I've been thinking about that there have been some sweetnesses in this time. The time of isolation, the slower way of living. It's helped to break me from some bad patterns in myself in terms of just living way too fast, living a very stressed out existence, cramming in my schedule, trying to be busy for busyness sake. And actually this time of not having much to do, of not seeing very many people, of just being forced to sit by myself in a room sometimes, which is awful sometimes, but also it's been a really beautiful moment to actually realize, oh, this is a beautiful thing in its own time because God has been using it to do some really profound and changing things in my life and in my own heart. And I wonder what it is for you. Like, what has this really challenging period that I think we're all ready to be done with? What are some of the things that God is doing in it? And I suspect that a lot of it we won't know for a very long time. That bit where it says this, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. And I expect that God is doing eternal things during this season, but I also expect that we won't really understand the full scope of it. And to some degree, we won't understand it until the day that we die and go home to be with Jesus. But it's a beautiful thing to think about, that there is wisdom in this time, that God is using this, that as it says in Genesis 52, what man meant for evil, God meant for good, or what diseases and brokenness meant for evil, God means for good. And so I wonder, what is it that God is making beautiful in this time right now for you? Would you prayerfully consider that? I think it's important to think about what God is doing through this difficult time, and to, mourn the losses, but to also look at some of the beautiful things that God has wrought in the midst of it. So prayerfully consider that. I don't know. I think it's good. It's something that I've been thinking about quite a lot, and it's helped me to stay a little bit sane during this time. But I love you guys, and I'll see you this Sunday for church. All right, bye now.